Hey, everybody, welcome to lesson 21 of Financial Sobriety School. We're talking about regulating your nervous system for your money. And just wanted to kind of pop in. I haven't done a podcast for a couple months. I had about 3.5 weeks. I was on vacation. And what I'll say to that is, with us being in sobriety, it is so important for us to, spend our money on things that make us happy. And it had taken a really long time for my financial sobriety to get to the point where, like, I could confidently, like, plan a trip away. And, my husband, Sonny, and I hadn't been on a vacation together for 10 years since I got sober. So I'm gonna be celebrating 10 years, in next month. So yeah, 10 years since we had been away on vacation, and boy, was it obvious when we went because it was like, oh, we have been missing out so much on stuff, and it just really brought back how important it is to spend our money on things that we want to do, and I think that's a really big piece of financial sobriety, is getting to a place where you really can do that because it's really important. And I remember once I was taking one of my courses of my designations that I was taking, and one of the teachers said, like, there's sometimes like I will say it's a good idea for people to go on vacation. Once they have their spending addiction under control, yes, they still might have some debt. And yes, that trip might cause some debt, but having a plan in paying it off, but also there's just something about, doing something that makes you really, really happy. But I will say that waiting 10 years to do it made it just so much more special. It just made it just I was just so grateful. But now I being at home is hard. Being at home is hard. I'm currently looking out my window and we're having a huge hailstorm. Actually, while we were gone, we went to Costa Rica. While we were gone, it was like the coldest I think it's ever been on record here on Vancouver Island. So some really cold temperatures, and we were there basking on the beach while everyone else froze. So I can't say too much about the hail that's happening outside, but, yes, I just really wanted to bring it home that, yes, it took me 10 years. I worked really, really hard to get us to a place financially where we felt comfortable, and it felt so good. I wish I would have done a little bit more on, like, recording kind of how I treated money on our trip because, like, it was really hard for me to, like, plan things and do things because it was like, "Oh my goodness, we've worked this long," and, like, it felt really hard to all of a sudden be spending the money. And things were way more expensive there than I kind of anticipated. So that kind of threw a loop. But I went to Walmart, which was ridiculous. Like one of the main cities in Costa Rica, they have Walmarts. It was completely different than what we have here. And actually, when I kind of went throughout our trip, I learned that Walmart was actually one of the most expensive places I did buy stuff. So that was definitely an eye opener. Eating out was really, really expensive, I found. We cooked most of the time, but if you want some money tips on Costa Rica, just hit me up, DM me. I would love to share all the things because I had so much fun. I just absolutely loved it. So I'm back at it, back in the seat, back at work again, and excited to bring you this lesson of the podcast talking about regulating our nervous systems and how that affects our money. And what I first want to talk about is, like, what does that even mean? Like, I find a lot of people, like, it's definitely in the zeitgeist right now of people talking about, oh, regulate your nervous system. And I think it's really important. I'm actually doing a lot of real somatic work myself, on my CPTSD, and it's been really, really helpful. But what does regulating your nervous system even mean? Essentially, it is kind of trying to bring yourself online is kind of how I would explain it in simpler terms of like you're doing something to get yourself where your brain is up and running, you're online, you're ready to go, you're present, you're grounded, you are understanding what's going on. um where if you're not regulated, if you're dysregulated, you could be completely dissociative, you could be not even thinking and you're just like on autopilot and you're not present whatsoever. You might be having like really big stress breath, you might be just not there, just not like I remember, like, as a kid, like, looking at you and nobody's home, right? Like, nobody's home, like, you were dysregulated, you're outside of your body. You're not in your body. You're not grounded. So, I think that, when we go into a trauma response, that's often where our nervous systems start to get dysregulated. So that would be, where your body and yourself senses danger of some sort. And I will be honest that my body, I think, has been in a trauma response for, I'm going to be 47 this year. So I would say my body's been in a trauma response since I was probably about, 3 or 4. And because and a lot of us are, right? But some of us learn how to relax ourselves, some of us learn how to just be and be able to handle all the things. And it's taken me so many years because I'm starting to have a lot of like body pain the last couple of years. And my body is just constantly like tightened up all the time, mostly in my hip area. So I literally have to like get my sense from my brain to go like, okay, relax my hips, right? Like bring attention to them. How are they feeling? That's where I'm doing some stretches, that kind of thing. So when it comes to regulating your nervous system, it's really trying to bring stress levels down, trying to just really get to an even ground of feeling like you are present, here, grounded, and can make good decisions. I did my trauma of money facilitator designation last year, and they have a beautiful, I guess you would say, like a measuring system called the window of regulation, where you go from 0, which is completely like really low arousal, like dissociative, not present at all, to number 10, which would be like hyper arousal, like that manic feeling. Like that's how you can feel like when that dopamine probably really gets you going and you're planning your spending and you're planning your binge spending. Let's just call it what it is, your emotional spending. And all of a sudden you're going like you're just ramping up, and that arousal is just like, just you're off to the races. You are off to the races. You are like going at a level 20 of how you're feeling. So, how can we get to the middle, which is, between 4 and 7, which is a perfect state to be in to be able to make financial decisions. So I think it's always a really beautiful way, and it's a really simple tool for us to just check in. Where am I? Between 1 and 10, how am I feeling? Am I feeling like I have some energy? I have some presence. I feel grounded. I'm clear, right? I know what's happening, where there's that like that foggy kind of muddy feeling that starts to happen when you're both, at really low arousal and high arousal, right? Like I know when I get a really big dopamine hit, or if I'm feeling like really, on level 10, I can often sometimes feel really dizzy, and not really paying attention to anything and not even being in the moment at all. So, really trying to be between a 4 and a 7 on where you want to be within your regulation system to make decisions with our money. Because if we're making it from like a really low depressed state, we could be making decisions like are wanting to try to feel better, so we're going to, go online shopping. We're going to go to our favorite store. We're going to buy stuff to make us feel better. And you could even do that with like at a level 10. It could be the exact same thing, right? You could be feeling really good and be like, oh, I want to celebrate something. Oh, I'm feeling so good right now. Like, let's go shopping. Oh, I actually feel like I could, go like as women, like clothes shopping, for example. Like I'm feeling so good. I could actually like walk in the store and feel good in clothes I try on. That's a dangerous point. Believe me, a been a there, a done that. So I wanted to talk today about some things that can really help start to regulate your nervous system, because we want to get to a place where we really feel like we can make really sound, present, clear, and aligned financial decisions, which is essentially financial sobriety. We're wanting to really make sure we're in that state when we're making decisions on purchasing things, or if you are making big financial decisions, for example, buying a new vehicle, buying a new laptop, those sort of things, right? We want to make sure that we're like checked in on ourselves and being like, okay, how am I doing right now? Is this a good idea right now? And I'll say one of my biggest tips that I love to give people when they're making big purchases is actually like wait 24 hours if it feels really super impulsive, to see if that's even something you actually need. Because a lot of times it's probably something that you don't even need. It's just that impulsive brain is kicking in. And like we have an emotional brain. And I think this is really important to talk about. And because then I geek out into the science part of things, that we have an emotional brain. I picture of it as the front of my head. I don't really know why. It isn't, because it's a different parts of your brain that are kind of wired together. But your emotional brain is always acting on like past experiences, like emotional experiences, that sort of thing. Like it's always coming from a place of things that have happened before, that then is triggering your emotional brain to make a decision based on emotion, based on no rational information other than, oh, last time I went online shopping, that felt really, really good. And I'm going to do that again. Or if you've had traumatic things happen in certain scenarios, and then all of a sudden you did something that made you feel good, your emotional brain is going to remember that. And that's where our hard wiring really starts to come from. And hence why we do emotional spending, why we have those impulses, why we have that compulsive thinking about our money and spending specifically, is because it's coming from our emotional brain. And tapping is something actually that I did quite often at a certain time in my life. I don't do it as much as I used to, but it is a tool that really works for me. And I think that's why I picture my emotional brain like at the front of my brain. But like tapping can sometimes just start like with tapping above your eyebrows, and then, tapping underneath your eyes, and then underneath your nose. I'm doing it quickly, but and then just underneath your mouth For those who are seeing it on YouTube, you'll see what I'm doing, but just to describe. And then just below your neck on your collarbones, tapping there always feels really good. And then tapping like right on top of your head. Um, Great way to regulate your nervous system. And as I was doing it on my collarbone, that's always where it feels the best for me because I actually hold a lot of anxiety. Like I can feel it like kind of caving in sometimes. So doing that on my collarbone, like my body remembered. It was like, oh yeah, that actually feels really good. And our body remembers that stuff. And just like the emotional brain I was just talking about, our bodies remembering when we were doing that spending and it felt really good. And our bodies also remembering when we were feeling shame from that and that feeling that was coming from that. So, just a reminder of that. But yeah, tapping is something that really helped me a lot. I don't think it was when I first started my recovery or my financial sobriety, but I know that pandemic, that's when it really ramped up for me. I felt so dysregulated during the pandemic. At first, it felt like really good. And, oh, I'm home, my family's home. And then it was like, oh, I'm home and my family's home. I think there's so many of us that kind of thought that, right? And we're going to talk about some ways to kind of regulate your nervous system, bring you within that ideal 4 to 7 range of the window of regulation. I'll put the little picture that they have of it in the podcast, and then as well in obviously the blog and the YouTube notes. I'll put it on there so you have it as a resource for yourself. But between 1 and 10, if you were to say, okay, I have to go to the grocery store, I'm going shopping, where would you say right now you are on the window of regulation? One being like too low, like really low arousal, to 10, which is really like high arousal, feeling really high, feeling really low is 1. Where would you say you are on that scale right now? And so wherever you are, if you're feeling like you're in the middle, great. And thinking, if you are in the middle, what do you think you've done in your day to have it where you're feeling really present and clear and aligned? What was it that you did throughout your day to help you feel that way? And then, so if you're between 1 and 3 or 8 and 10, so the low point or the high point, this is where you're going to go into things to regulate your nervous system. So, this is where I'm going to start to talk about the vagus nerve. And again, kind of a zeitgeist thing that a lot of people are talking about. And I may be wrong on this, and I probably should have checked this before I recorded. But from what I understand, like your vagus nerve, like kind of goes in behind your ear, um, and like kind of down underneath, like where your ear, I don't know what I would call that. Like your eardrum kind of would go down into your neck there. So kind of if you put your fingers kind of at the top of your ear on your head and just follow that down, kind of down your neck, that's where your vagus nerve is. And so that's where too, like even kind of tapping on that can really help be able to get to your nervous system, because the vagus nerve is essentially your communication center of your body, right? So if you are feeling like really low or really high, your vagus nerve is communicating that information to your body, right? Like, ooh, I'm in fight or flight. Oh, there's a threat. Oh my goodness, I'm feeling stressed out. Oh, there's anxiety. Oh, I'm feeling really sad. That's where it lets your body know what's happening. So its role in helping to regulate your nervous system, because it's that communication highway, is what I like to refer to it as. That's where, being able to tap into that is amazing. One good thing that physically you can do to get into help to exercise your vagus nerve or stimulate it is singing or humming or chanting. So even if you're just like, just a really simple hum or a slow hum if you're feeling low, and just even just like an that feels really weird to do on a podcast. I feel like I should be in my yoga class. And did you notice that I was talking softer after I did that? Because it is, you know, maybe it stimulated me and I'm feeling excited. And so, feeling a little bit higher on the regulation situation. So, like alming, I definitely could feel my body drop already, because that's actually a practice of mine that I do have within yoga. Singing, throw on your favorite song and belt it out. So there's a lot of vocal things happening. Laughing. Laughing is a really good thing to stimulate your vagus nerve. If I've probably said this one a few times on here, but if you haven't watched the Jimmy Fallon and Kevin Hart on the roller coaster, just YouTube it. It's freaking hilarious. I laugh every time I watch it. And maybe it's because I'm terrified of roller coasters myself. It just it's just so funny to me. Um so there's also, dancing, shaking. You hear me talk about like kind of shaking my body around. That's something I love to do. Something that's also like it's ending that stress cycle, which I've talked about in past lessons before. And so, some psychological things you can do to stimulate your vagus nerve is, doing some deep breathing. And it could be, my favorite breathing is like you're breathing in for 6, holding it for 6, and then breathing out for like 8 or 9. So what that would look like, or sound like for those who are listening, would be breathing in for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, hold 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, out for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I always have a lot longer breath out. I can even sometimes go past 8. But that's always one that really works for me. Box breathing is a really good one. If you just want to YouTube that, is a great way to get some good, nourishing, deep breaths happening. Because then it can really like lower those cortisol levels. It'll lower all of that energy. Meditating, doing something like going to watch the sunset, going to watch the sunrise. What another thing that can really help our nervous system, a lot of people are talking about like cold plunging and stuff lately. And I was going to use the word zeitgeist again. I thought, wow, Linda, that's going to be the 3rd time in this podcast you've said that word. So maybe hold off on that. But it's really trendy right now. It's something that people are doing. And that can automatically really reset your nervous system. I love a good cold plunge. A cold shower can also do the same thing. It's like you want to have something like that kind of catches your breath, right? So when you have that cold moment and it's like, right? Like you feel like all of a sudden you can't breathe for a second, your breath catches. That's when you know, like, okay, like all my wires in my body are resetting. I'm coming back online. And that's why that online work word really, I love that for our nervous system. Another thing that I have used as a technique in the past to really kind of connect to my body, be in my body in regards to like emotions and stuff that come up, is Tara Brock's RAIN acronym. So she has, I have the book here, I believe it might be in my room. Um, Tara Brock, I think it's just like called Radical Self Compassion. Um, but she does yes, here it is. For those who are watching on YouTube. So Radical Compassion is her book that the Rain is talks about and goes into detail about. So what the acronym RAIN means is R is to recognize it, name it, what's going on. Oh, I'm feeling sad because I had an expectation that I was going to go out with a friend and they canceled on me. Name it, recognize it, like, oh God, I'm feeling really upset about that. And really sitting with it for a minute. Because what I'm not wanting you to do is don't ignore what's happening, right? Like, oh, I can't feel like this. I need to like change this. It's really important for us to be like, oh, hey, I'm actually feeling really sad right now. Like, and naming it, like recognizing what's actually happening. And then A is for allow. So let it be part of your experience. Let it be present. Let it be something that you are taking part in. Allow those feelings to come up. And then I is for investigate, deepening that attention to like what is actually happening and why. And, again, just having that time with it, sitting with it. And then N is for nurture, bring in that self compassion. Why am I feeling this way? Because I feel like I wanted to go with my friend and now I don't feel like I'm enough. Right. And that's, probably not what your friend's thinking, but you're thinking that in that moment. And really nurturing that and having some self compassion about it. And then starting to move forward. What did I learn from that? What can I do to move forward with this? And that's where it's really, really good. Like that, your nervous system is happy. You're like, hey, I noticed I'm sad. I'm feeling it. This is what I'm doing with that information. So, your body, mind, and spirit, it's all talking to each other, right? All of it matters and everything that happens for you matters. And it's what we do with that information that's really important so it doesn't get stuck in our system. We hear a lot about, how trauma is living in our body, and it absolutely is. So, what are some ways to bring some presence and some self compassion and love to ourselves? And, using some tools that regulate us to make better decisions with our money, have financial sobriety, and have some peace. I think that's the biggest part about regulating myself that I think is the best part is bringing that peace. And I just absolutely love that. And I know for sure that it absolutely affects your relationship with money. So I hope there was something within this lesson that you resonated with, because it's a really important topic, and connecting our bodies and our minds and all of that is really, really important with your relationship with money. It's not just about the numbers. It's not just about having a financial plan or a spending plan. It's looking after your whole self. Thanks for tuning in today and for listening and being here, watching this lesson. I appreciate it so much. And I will see you in a couple weeks for the next lesson. We are going to talk about sober spending, and it's going to be the grocery shopping edition because, man, we need it right now because those grocery stores and all of that are still at record crazy numbers right now. So I will see you in a couple weeks and we'll chat about that then. Bye.